We have a special guest and our clock is ticking, so we are going to go ahead and get started. I'll give everyone just a minute to sit down. The evening is all about talking, so we'll have plenty of time for that. Welcome, everyone. I'm Jill Savitt. I'm the CEO here at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, and we are delighted to have everyone here tonight. You are joining about 4,900 other people across Atlanta who are participating in Equitable Dinners. We had 80 people here for lunch today. There are folks, the Girl Scouts are doing dinner, the Y is doing dinner, Microsoft is doing dinner, a whole bunch of companies, and then individual homes. So there are 490, roughly, other tables happening right now. And this event has been designed to commemorate the 1906 Atlanta Race Massacre. There was a commemoration last year on the 115th anniversary, and we're trying to make this an annual event. I give a lot of tours here at the center and talk to a lot of people about Atlanta history, and there are many who don't know the story of the Atlanta Race Massacre, even though it has defined our city and its history. The history of that event has an impact on our lives today. So we are delighted to share that history with you as a way to understand where we are. We can't fully understand where we are in the life of our city unless we clearly look at our past. And without clearly looking at our past and understanding this moment, we can't move forward in a different way. And so that is our task here tonight. I have some thanks to make. I want to thank the Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation. Faye Twersky is here. They invested in our project called Truth and Transformation, which is an effort to unbury history and to understand it and to teach it to a wide range of people. I have some board members here, AJ Robinson and Amara Kennedy. I want to thank the Out of Hand Theater Company, Adria Kitchens, representing that whole team. They're our partners in this effort. They made sure that there were 5,000 guests over today and a little bit yesterday, and there'll be a couple more during the week of people who were away this weekend. We've got our partner, Hank Klibanoff from the Georgia Civil Rights Cold Cases Project. He and his team have done research into the lives of the people who were massacred and also a search for their descendants. And so tonight at this dinner, we have 4 descendants of victims of the 1906 Race Massacre, and I would like to introduce them to you. Pharaoh Allen, who is the grandson of Luther Judson Price. Yolanda and Pat Walker are the granddaughters of Alex Walker. And Ralph Baker is the grandnephew of Jesse Max Barber. When there's an atrocity crime like this race massacre, it's very important to give our condolences and our support to the family members. And so we are tracing more descendants of more of the people who were impacted by that event and hope to have them join us in years to come. We understand that you all are taking time out tonight to participate in this, and we really appreciate it. It's going to require all of us having honest conversations if we're going to move forward in a different way. And moving Atlanta forward makes us think of our mayor, who is here tonight to welcome all of you to this event. He is a former board member of the center, and he is the only lifetime member of the center. He came so often, it was silly to give you a lifetime membership. I should have charged you. would have made a mint, but we are so delighted that the mayor is here to kick off this evening. And so we take his vision of moving Atlanta forward together very seriously. And we hope events like this are the wind at your back. So please.
Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good to see all of you. And thank you, Jill, for that introduction. And of course, thank you to the center and the whole team here. This really is one of the places that I call home. As mentioned, I didn't know I was one of the only lifetime members. I started off when this thing was under construction. I said I wanted to be a part of it and paid I think it was like $250 or $350 at the time. So it's a good investment on my part. Real good investment. And I was one of the founding board members, and Shirley Franklin being my mentor. So she was like, you got to get in on this. And I did. And I'm so excited to see that this, this is why we don't call it a museum. It's really a center. It has living history that we're going to be talking about today. So something that happened in 1906, we can still have a discussion about it today in the context of where we are and where we're going. So that's why it's living history. So it's not a stale place, such as a museum may be. And so I'm glad to be here with our Chief Equity Officer of the city, Kadira Abdurrahim. She's right here. Thank you for being here, Kadira, and your whole team. There's a lot of people from our office. A lot of people here from our Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So I thank this team for all the outstanding work that they do. And I'm welcoming you to Equitable Dinners Atlanta. Equitable Dinners is a collaboration, as Jill mentioned, between Out of Hand Theater, of course, the Center for Civil and Human Rights, and the Fulton County Remembrance Coalition, and many other extraordinary community partners that are in this room or have been here already. Our theme this evening is Better Me, Better We, Better World. And I think that's really a good theme for us to remember. Equitable Dinners Atlanta marks the 116th anniversary of the 1906 Atlanta Race Massacre. It is indeed an event in Atlanta's history that is not always widely known. This city that I was born and raised in, that I love, we know how to talk about the good stuff a lot of times. We definitely push through and talk about all of our successes, but we sometimes code over some of these major things that happened in the past that sometimes we want to forget, but it's important for us to remember and have dialogue around as we are today. All over Metro Atlanta, there are 5,000 guests, 100 actors, and 150 facilitators having the same conversation that we will have tonight. Equitable Dinners Atlanta brings together people of all backgrounds to have some vital conversations on how Atlanta's history connects us on how to overcome systemic issues even today. And hopefully the dinners will inspire some positive action for moving Atlanta forward together. A short one-person play will launch this event. Then each unique table will share a meal and story. So you will get fed. It is a real dinner. A trained facilitator, it will be at each table, and that person will help participants engage in dialogue with depth, with honesty, and with mutual respect. Tonight, we will hear an edited version of the 1906 Atlanta Race Massacre narrative. It was originally written by the Equal Justice Initiative. We will see a play and get some real good food and come back to our tables for some guided conversation. So I look forward to it. So now let's get started, Jill.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. And thank you to the Office of Equity and Diversity at the city for making this possible. Really appreciate it. I neglected to identify some descendants. We have the Washington and Douglas family, who are descendants of David T. Howard, are also here tonight. Nettie Washington, Noah Washington Douglas, Douglas Washington, John Washington, Noah Washington, and Nigel Morris. So thank you also for being here this evening. So with that, I'm going to bring up a lead facilitator for this evening to tell us how it's all going to go down. from our partner. This is Tara Gay.
Good evening, everyone. It's when it's always a chance that you take when you give a girl from New York a microphone because you then think you're an MC. But I'm gonna stay on script so that Adria does not have a conniption. And I just want to first of all say thank you all so much for being here this evening. As Jill said, my name is Tara Gay, and I wear a few hats tonight in terms of representation. I am the Director of Culture and Equity for Charles Drew Charter School, which was partnered and just had a conversation this evening similar to what you all are going to experience. I also am the assistant producer for Beloved Community Talks with the King Center, which is also a partner here. I am a member of the design team for Equitable Dinners, so much of this I have also with the support of other people, helped to kind of facilitate how this would work for you all. And I am now also a proud member of the board for Out of Hand Theater. So there are many hats that you can't see with these locks, but I'm wearing them. So. But in deference and in due respect, quite honestly, to the elders and as well as to the descendants, I want to be able to provide for you all. And if you all will read along with me, you all have in your program the story that I'm going to be sharing with you all, just to give you all so that we have some grounding and some context that is set around what is it that has brought us here this evening. So the Atlanta Massacre of 1906, commonly referred to as the Atlanta Race Riots of 1906, began the night of September 22nd and lasted through September 25th. But this tragic event did not occur without prior provocation. Part of the cause of this tragic event were the inflammatory political campaigns that urged white voters to suppress Black people's civil and economic rights, incited by candidate Hoke Smith, former publisher of the Atlanta Journal, and Clark Howell, editor of the Atlanta Constitution. These men also used their influence within the media to encourage racist media coverage to promote sensationalized reports of assaults by Black men on white women, which aroused deep racial hostility and anger toward the African American community. The stoking of these racialized fires led to an explosion of unjustified vengeance from 10,000 white men and boys going to terrorize the African American community. The racial terrorism inflicted by white mobs during the Atlanta Massacre sought to maintain white supremacy and dominance by burning down Black-owned businesses, instilling fear in the entire Black community through unpredictable, arbitrary, and brutal violence. While over 25 African American people were confirmed killed that weekend, many estimate that there were closer to 100 total, with several accounts depicting the merciless attacks on these innocent people. As the violence and police arrests of Black Atlanta residents continued, Black leaders and white officials met privately to discuss plans for ending the terror, and the city's Chamber of Commerce held a public meeting. Though the massacre had been the product of white mob brutalities, these meetings insisted on a narrative that the violence was due to Black Atlanta residents' failure to protect white women. The Chamber of Commerce conversations also revealed that among white residents, the primary incentive to end the massacre was to end its disruption to local business. In the aftermath, grand jury investigations concluded that the city police had failed signally and absolutely in the performance of their duty and led to the death of many African American Atlantans. Citizen groups made up of white and Black community leaders met to determine how to provide aid to those most affected. Despite the massacre's roots in racial hostility, more Jim Crow laws were later to be developed to further restrict the rights and freedoms of Black people in Atlanta, preventing them from living in certain residential areas, disenfranchising them, and forcing Black-owned businesses out of the central business district. With the rise of social media platforms and numerous ways to communicate with people across the world, we must be vigilant and even more aware of the rhetoric being shared that broadcasted around our country. If we are to combat systems of systematic racism and enact change through our efforts with social justice, it starts with acknowledging the ugly history that exists in our city and reconciling with these events in order to move forward in unity. Furthermore, these people should not be forgotten in history. Although they were victims of this terrible event, they were also shopkeepers, business owners, veterans, and everyday employees. William Welch, Frank Smith, William Marion, Leela Maddox, Annie Shepherd, Milton Brown, Zeb Long, Sam Magruder, Frank Frambro, Clem Rhodes, George Wilder, Will Moreland, James Fletcher, and Sam Robinson. If I could ask for you all to just for a moment, just take a pause for a reflection for the ancestors that are no longer here because of this, those ancestors that they leave behind that have chosen to be with us this evening as their descendants. If we could just take a collective pause just for reflection and thanks for their endurance and allowing us to be able to be in a space such as this to have such a conversation this evening. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our phenomenal playwright as well as the gentleman who will be the actor for our event this evening. We will be enjoying the work of Mr. Marlon Burnley, phenomenal professor now, and certainly a phenomenal person to have. I have had the pleasure of working with and seeing just the genius that he brings to the table. So I invite you all now to enjoy the works of Mr. Marlon Burnley, and welcome to Normal.
Hi everyone. Hi. While it's great to be here, I'm nervous as hell. So I don't usually do things like this. I never do. Karaoke, nope. Spelling bee, nope. I was the one in school that froze every time I was asked to give an answer or asked what I thought. It wasn't that I didn't know what the answer was or have anything to say. I just froze up. Now, if you want jokes, I'm there. But participating in a story slam is a stretch for me. So when I saw the call for storytellers ad, I scrolled right by. Nope. A couple days went by, I'm laying in bed scrolling, and the ad popped up again, just scrolled by. But this time I scrolled back, clicked on the comment section because why not? There's always something good in the comment section. But instead of drama and spicy takes, I saw an outpouring of individual unique experiences. And it made me think about my own. It made me think about the quiet kid who never felt the urgency or the need to say anything. But there was something about witnessing strangers bare their souls and share their truths in those comments, and something in me clicked. So I thought I'd give it a shot. So here we go. When I was growing up, we didn't have much. Single parent household, several siblings, and hardly any room for all of us. My father was a bug guy. He did whatever he could to take care of us and make sure we were good. We always thought he was so cool because he knew so much about bugs, right? How they lived, their habits, how and when they mate, like everything. We looked up to him. We looked to him whenever we needed an answer, even when we knew he might not know it, because we knew he'd help us find the answer. See, my father never finished high school. He couldn't. He had my brother at a pretty young age, and he found himself having to drop out to provide for us. His intention was always to go back and finish, but he never got the chance. After my brother came a sister, then another sister, then me, and there was just no time. Especially after our mom passed, you know, it was hard on him, especially as we were growing up and going through school. We'd get to points where his knowledge was exhausted, but he always tried to help us figure it out. One thing he was sure about was his Black history. I mean, everything about it, you know, the transatlantic slave trade, African diaspora, Sojourner, Malcolm, Martin, food, you name it. He could talk about it. And I don't know. I was always astonished by all the stories and lessons he would tell us. I remember saying to him, I want to be just like you when I grow up. I know it's cheesy, but I meant it. And but really got me what was his answer. He said to me, "No, I want you to be better than me." Which at the time I didn't understand because he, to me, was the greatest person. You know, how could I top a man who worked his butt off daily for us? How could I top a man who could carry all the groceries in one trip? Right? How could I? And that was the last piece of advice, at least that I can remember, that I got from my father. Big C. Doctor says it was most likely because of all of the bug fumes, but after that we were put into foster care. No family around that could take us in. My siblings and I were split up. We were able to stay in touch, but we haven't lived together since then. My older brother went almost immediately into the military. My sisters were pretty much done with high school and went off to college so they could shoot their shot, and that left me 13 years old. My sisters tried to make it so they could take care of me while they were in school, but the state decided it would best to pair me with a nice established family. I was sent to live with a white couple, and to be honest, it was great. There was never a moment where I wondered where my meal was coming from. I got nice new clothes, shoes, a room of my own. It was great. The only thing that wasn't so great, I realize now, looking back, is the high school they sent me to, a predominantly white private school. I was maybe one of 12 Black kids in my class. But being older now, knowing the things I know, having experienced the things I have experienced, I realize how not good that environment was for me. Example, freshman year. Now, before my father passed, he always had us in some type of sport. For one, he needed to keep us off the street, so community sports clubs were always a thing. And two, he needed to tire us out before getting home after a 10-hour day. So I got into track, like heavy into track. I loved to run. There was just something about the wind hitting my face as I strode. My father would always say I moved like a gazelle. I love that. So naturally, coming into my freshman year in a new school around new kids, I wanted something familiar. So I signed up for the track team. On the first day of summer practices, I gathered with the other kids on the track while we waited for the coaches. We're all introducing ourselves, and the kid, white, comes up to me and expresses how excited he is about the season because now they have a Black kid. I chuckled, and he went on to tell me about this idea that Black people have an extra muscle in their calves, and that's why we're faster. That was news to me. I chuckled again and let it go. And a couple days later, I'm walking into my next class. My locker was on the first floor, and I needed to go up to the second. Now, this was the first week of classes, so hallway traffic is crazy. Trying to get up the stairs in a timely fashion was a slow and arduous task, and kids would talk, shout, or sing the most popular song at the moment just to make the long walk short. But that day, when I saw a shower of colorful pieces of paper gently floating down from the second floor, I thought, this is just another one of those things to pass the time. It's high school. Now everyone's grabbing for these sheets of paper, so I do too. And once I grab one, I see that it's not just a colorful piece of paper. It's a flyer. And printed in bold, it said, KKK meeting in the parking lot after school. Girl Scout cookies will be sold. Now, I locked eyes with one of the only Black kids in my class, and I could tell immediately that he was bothered. Of course, there was no meeting. But I spent the rest of that day and the rest of the year bothered. And I said nothing. Sophomore year. I'm a little older. Still running track, killing it, to be honest. And there was a big part of me that hated being so fast because it somewhat validated that theory of the kid from my first day of practice, but I liked winning, so whatever. So we're outside practicing, and there's a bunch of storm clouds above us, and I, being somewhat of a clown when the opportunity presented itself, I said, I need to get inside because sugar melts in the rain, meaning my skills are so sweet, you know. And this kid, same one that made the muscle joke, he says, don't you mean dirt turns to mud in the rain? And even though it was a terribly crafted joke, I mean, I knew exactly what he was getting at. In the moment, though I was angry, I chuckled and said nothing. However, after practice, I went to the coach, told them what happened, and they assured me that it would be taken care of. The next day at lunch, we had a sandwich bar, and all of a sudden, I hear a kid shouting, man, I love Sambos. Having learned what I learned from my father, I knew Sambo was a racist term to describe Black people, but I also knew it was a term oddly used in the place of the word sandwich. So I, not wanting to be the one crying racist all the time, I let it go. But it kept happening. And other kids would join in, and eventually I found myself in a situation where all the kids were repeating this word while making direct eye contact with me. Man, I love Sambos. Sambos are my favorite. One kid, no, Sambos are gross. And that hurt. And instead of speaking to administration, I held in my tears until I got home. I went to my foster parents, my white foster parents, told them what happened, and they replied, oh, it must have been a misunderstanding. I said nothing. Junior year, not on the track team anymore. I just couldn't find the joy. I couldn't really find the joy in much of anything. My grades were slipping. I forgot assignments. There was this one time, I was in social studies class, and we had an assignment where we had to bring in an object or a story tied to our family and ancestral history. Initially, I was excited. I was going to be able to share something that I shared with my father. I'd be able to honor him with all the things he taught me. I prepared this whole talk about food and how it was the only thing that kept enslaved people uplifted. Sharing a meal. I even brought one of my father's old recipes. But on the day of presentations, I was called on and I panicked. The confidence and joy that I had melted away. And instead of sharing what I prepared, I leaned into the mockery that I experienced in my first 2 years at that school. I stood up and I said, my shirt's made out of cotton, and as y'all know, Black folks are famous for picking cotton. And the class erupted, and my teacher looked at me as if I had ripped her gut out and stomped on it. In the moment, I was crushed. But I was also relieved because I had saved myself from being the butt of someone else's joke. The rest of the year happened that way. Jokes were made, we all laughed, and I said nothing. Senior year, I'm barely passing my classes. Not because I don't understand the work, but because I refuse to do the work. I've kind of secured the spot as the class clown. Still wasn't on the track team, but I had gotten to the point where I feel like I had gained everyone's respect. It really was an ideal high school experience. Everyone knowing who I was, high fives and fist bumps as I walked through the halls. It was great. We were also at the point where we were fully invested in parties and drinking. And there was this one time, a friend of mine wanted to get some alcohol, so we pulled the "Hey Stranger." All right. If you don't know what that means, it's when you approach a random adult with hopes of securing liquor, give them money, they go in, bring it out for you. So we found a guy, a Black dude. And of course, I was the one who had to go up to him and ask the favor. He agrees, and we wait in our car. And wait. And wait. And wait. Eventually, we realize he isn't coming back with our money or our booze. We got ripped off. And as I stare out the window, I hear my friend mutter, "Man, I can't stand niggers." I look over and I ask, "What did you just say?" And they say, "Oh, you're not a nigger." He is. You're one of the good ones. And in that moment, I didn't know who I should be more mad at, them or me. Them for saying it, or me for opening the door for that to happen. I mean, they just used one of the worst names you could call a Black person in front of me. Yeah, no, I know it wasn't technically aimed at me, but in a way it was. I felt that. And it was hard to let go. You know how they say before you die, your whole life flashes before your eyes? Well, I think the same thing happens when you realize you're standing in front of a racist. It makes you replay all the moments, the microaggressions, the fear that you experience at the hands of racism. It makes you think, what if? What if I would have shut it down when they commented on my speed? What if I would have spoken up for that kid that looked crushed as we stood under the sheets of colorful paper raining down on us? What if I presented the rich history that my father was so proud of? After they said that to me, "You're one of the good ones," I looked back at them and said nothing. I got out of their car and I walked away. And that to me said more than words ever could. Sometimes it's okay to not say anything. Sometimes you can't find the words. But it's the way you do not say anything. That's what matters. Thank you for listening to me.
So at this time, I'm going to ask for you not to say anything and to actually once again close your eyes as we take a collective breath after that play. And in this moment, as you are taking your collective breath, I want you all to think about some things that were illuminated in this story and that becomes critical for those of us, especially in the spaces of education and even in corporate settings or other nonprofit settings, that enrollment is not synonymous with inclusion, and inclusion in and of itself will not cultivate belonging. And so we have a responsibility to understand that, again, even when we grant access, seeking for people to simply fit in versus granting them full acceptance of their humanity is not acceptable. And so as you all go into your conversations this evening, I want for you all to just consider some things that we have committed to in terms of our shared commitments of how we will share these stories tonight. We will invite you all to be able to share where were your spaces of what you all called normal. My senior year of high school, my essay going into college was I was an oddity living in a world of norm, and I had no idea until this full circuit moment how incredibly true that would be, because I have been the person who's fought all of my life for the fullness of my humanity, even when other people refuse to see it. And so I want to ask you all to, again, go to your program so that you can share with us in terms of these shared commitments that we have. For those of you all who are joining us via live stream, we also ask that you share with these as you begin to go into your conversations. And the commitments that we will ask for you all to share this evening is around courageous presence. We commit to staying in the conversation, even when our feelings may seem big and seem uncomfortable. One of our persons, a part of our committee, who is a part of our design team, Dr. Kamara Jones, says on the edge of your discomfort usually is your growth. And so I'm hoping that if you are uncomfortable this evening, you emerge here growing in your consciousness around how you continue to have these conversations. Courageous listening. We commit to listening to hear what others are saying instead of forming a reply. Courageous inclusivity. We make room, we make time for everyone's voice at the table. Courageous hope. We commit to being open to the possibility that things can change. Courageous kindness. We commit to engage each other with kindness and commit to being considerate even when we disagree. We are here to dialogue and not debate. Courageous sharing. We commit to share authentically from our personal experiences. And courageous care. We commit to care for each other by holding each other's stories in confidence. We commit to care for ourselves and our feelings and our needs. And so if you are also ones who are in agreement with these commitments, you can simply say, I agree. Now, I'm also a teacher. Now, you never really are a former teacher. I'm going to say that again so I can hear it loud from the person in the back. So if you are in agreement with these commitments, you can simply say, I agree. Thank you all so much. And then just once more, I'm going to just ask, and part of our African tradition, since Marlon's play illuminated that and also kind of alluded to it, I'm going to ask for the spirit of the ancestors that we say Ashe in this moment, that we recognize and give reverence to those who have been here before, the elders that take space in this room this evening, for all the journeys that will come forth from the work that we will do here. I ask you all to join me in simply saying Ashe. Thank you. Dinner is coming, so you all are welcome to go ahead and begin. Is there order, Adria, that we are calling out for tables to